Hi, I'm Melissa Cobb. Come fly with AOPA. Well, a Mooney that was on an instrument approach into a Maryland airport on November 27th nearly ended in tragedy. It struck high-voltage power transmission lines and got stuck. The pilot and the passenger were in the aircraft, dangling 100 feet above the ground for several hours before they were rescued. Now, AOPA Air Safety Institute Senior Vice President Richard McSpadden breaks down the accident as well as lessons that we can learn from it in this early analysis.
Let's take an early look at the crash of a Mooney M20J outside of Montgomery County Air Park near Gaithersburg, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. As he comes inbound, we get a couple clues as to the cockpit inside the Mooney. We can hear from liveatc.net that the pilot seems to be struggling with his internal navigation systems.
1 Romeo Fox, I'm showing you made a northwestbound turn. You can turn left turn heading 240, enable direct to bed cuff. Yeah, I'm showing you like a 340 heading right now. For 1 Romeo Fox, you might have it spelled incorrectly. Back up for me for 201 Romeo Fox, heading 230 would put you right direct bed cuff. 1 Romeo Fox, it looks like you made a southbound turn again. You're southeastbound now. I'm showing a heading of about 175.
Now, it's unclear whether or not there's a problem with the system itself or whether the pilot is struggling with his proficiency in the system. They eventually do sort it out and get the pilot headed in the right direction, and he heads towards the initial fix. The approach looks fairly normal, what you'd expect from a Mooney in terms of his altitudes and his airspeeds flying the RNAV runway 14 approach. The challenge here is it's nighttime and the weather has turned really low. By the time the pilot is calling for the approach, or it's possible that the last weather update he had, the weather was actually above approach minimums for the RNAV to runway 14. He transitions to the RNAV runway 14 approach, and sometime during that period, the weather drops even below the minimums for that approach. It's down to 200 overcast, 1.25 miles visibility or so. Somewhere in about a mile span, he suddenly drops much lower than is expected and hits the power lines. We can see from the satellite overlay how the power lines are running through the final approach course there on final to runway 14. So we can look at a couple things, and there's a couple lessons learned from pilots to take away from this scenario, whatever the NTSB finds. The first is low IFR at night is a demanding scenario. And we as pilots, as we undertake that kind of sortie, we need to recognize the demands on us, and we need to make sure we're rested, we're proficient, and we've studied the route and we're ready to undertake that kind of demanding scenario. The second is, as pilots, whenever we're coming inbound to an approach and we begin to struggle and lose our situational awareness or struggle with systems in our airplane or anything that's distracting us from monitoring the approach, flying the approach, and flying the airplane, we need to buy ourselves some time. That's a good time to fess up to air traffic control, tell them you're having systems issues and you'd like a vector to clear air if they can find it, a climb back up to clear air, or a move horizontally, a vector somewhere, or a vector to a holding pattern where you can establish yourself in holding, get set up, and then step back, take a breath, and reassess your whole situation. We can hear from the Gaithersburg Unicom. The pilot made several clicks to attempt to get the airport lights up. But we want to be careful that as we come inbound, that we don't transition off of the instruments too early. This is especially important if it's low IFR and if the bottoms are ragged. We'll have a tendency to want to pull our head out off the instruments and transition to visual. Be careful. Stay on your instruments until you're completely visual and you're certain you have the runway environment in sight. And then finally, to make sure that we're flying the airplane all the way in, there's a potential that perhaps he got distracted and just slowed down and stalled the airplane inside the final approach fix. One of the last ADS-B tracks we have is him at a slow airspeed. We don't know exactly when that track was taken, but it's just a reminder to us that be careful as we're coming down and continue that cross check, continue to monitor the airplane and keep flying airspeed all the way up to touchdown.
Thanks, Richard. We can all learn from accidents like this and how to become better pilots and avoid making the same kinds of mistakes. Well, another high-profile accident that happened over the same holiday weekend on November 25th, the pilot of a Vision Jet pulled the Cirrus Airframe Parachute System shortly after takeoff from Indianapolis Regional Airport. The aircraft was owned by Verijet, and the pilot was repositioning it to what would be a revenue flight. The pilot was the only person on board. The aircraft came down under the parachute and landed in a pond, and thankfully, the pilot was okay. Well, a little bit more down news coming your way this week, and this time it's on the airport front. Washington Executive Hyde Field in the Washington metropolitan D.C. area closed on November 30th. AOPA pilot video executive producer Warren Morningstar brings us the story.
Well, we've lost yet another suburban airport. Hyde Field, the Washington Executive Airport, closed for good November 30th. Located less than 20 miles south of downtown Washington, D.C., the little airport was once a thriving part of the area transportation infrastructure.
It was a very busy place. There were 240, 250 plus aircraft based here. There's a bunch of schools.
Now, Arthur Hyde built the airport on an old tobacco farm in 1940. It was a busy military training field during World War II and a base for Civil Air Patrol submarine chasers. After the war, Hyde Field continued to be a busy place.
It's a convenient place. Andrews Air Force Base, 3.5 miles that way. A lot of neat things in its favor. And of course, now you have MGM and National Harbor, which is 10 minutes the other way. 5 miles from the Beltway, give or take. Unless it's rush hour, you can show up here, be on Capitol Hill in 25 minutes.
But that very proximity to Washington was also Hyde Field's downfall.
Post 9/11, now we're down to 30-ish based aircraft.
9/11 shut down everything, of course, and 3 airports never returned to normal operations.
The Maryland 3 got shut down, what became known as Maryland 3, up through the tail end of February of '02. Things started to open back up.
But it's not easy to get in and out of the Washington flight restriction zone. Based aircraft left, transients went elsewhere, and the property has other potential uses.
It's a lot of land. It's the biggest uncommitted, for lack of a better term, open tract in this part of the county. So everybody's looking at it for redevelopment, for commercial, for housing, for solar, etc.
And so another one bites the dust. So long, Hyde Field. Warren Morningstar, AOPA Pilot Video.
AOPA Vice President of Airports and State Advocacy, Mike Ginter, joins us now to talk about the airport. Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on to talk with us.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah, now, so Hyde Field was a privately owned public use airport. How difficult is it for AOPA to help protect privately owned airports?
Well, it's a great question. First, we're absolutely sorry to see Hyde close. Any airport that closes is a loss of a critical piece of infrastructure for any community. And to ask me how hard it is a tough question. I'll tell you that we will fight to protect any airport. And what's different is public airports can be defended and protected in slightly different ways. We use different advocacy tools to help support privately owned airports. And in this case, the threats are a little bit different. A privately owned airport is private property rights are something we all love and cherish in this country. But the threats that exist to private airports, in this case, were financial, and bankruptcy is what took it out of business. Obviously, nothing we could do to help in that case, but we look very carefully at all the privately owned airports that asked for our help, and we've had a very good track record helping those airports negotiate challenges with their local communities. So we're just sorry to see this one go, Alyssa.
Yeah. Now, for pilots who are based at privately owned public use airports, what can they do to help ensure that their airport stays vibrant and healthy and is protected?
Right, great question. So if you're a pilot, aircraft owner at a privately owned airport, we would suggest that you understand the ownership basis of that privately owned airport. Get to know the owner if you don't. understand the relationship with the local community, maybe have somebody with a close ear to the local political elected leaders and the local planning boards or land use planning boards to find out if there's any developments planned near the airport or if there's a threat to the zoning of the airport property itself. The biggest threat I would tell all our members is the threat of succession planning for ownership change of the privately owned airports. And in a few cases, AOPA has helped members band together to buy the property from the owner. In other cases, the property passes to the next generation, and they may decide to sell it to a developer, which is happening at Freeway Airport now to the east of DC. So these are the threats that I would encourage our members to be aware of, but certainly private airports. There's 13,000 privately owned landing fields in this country, and it's a great thing. Certainly, due diligence is the right way to approach it.
Okay. Well, thanks for all that advice, Mike, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alyssa.
The Cessna Grand Caravan plays a lot of different roles, from a down and dirty boxy cargo hauler to a luxury transport machine. AOPA pilot editor at large Dave Hirschman shows us what it's like to fly the Caravan on amphibious floats.
The Cessna Caravan's origin story is as improbable as that of Cinderella or the Ugly Duckling. The Caravan was introduced in the mid-1980s as an inglorious cargo hauler. Its dimensions were set by the size of FedEx freight cans. Fixed landing gear, a boxy appearance, and relatively slow speed didn't matter to the next-day delivery firm. More recently, however, the Caravan has been transformed into a luxury air yacht. Amphibious floats make it an all-surface adventure machine with a towering presence. AOPA pilot Luz Beatty is learning to fly it on and off the water from Brian Addis, a former test pilot at float manufacturer Whip-Air. Deep V-shaped hulls allow the floats to cut through choppy water. The Caravan's smooth 675 horsepower Pratt & Whitney PT6 engine gets the hulking turboprop off the water energetically. In the air, the Caravan is stable and well-balanced, and has a wraparound windshield that provides an expansive view. Water landings are graceful and elegant, and a reversible prop can bring it to a stop quickly.
Blue lights, blue water. Now here's something you can do. Just leave the power there.
Okay.
Put your hand on the stick and start to pull. A little right rudder, more right rudder, more right rudder, more right rudder. And just more right rudder, more right rudder, more right rudder, and hold it off. Good. Now just add a little power. Pull your flaps all the way up. Keep that stick all the way back. There you go.
Touching down on four wheels is like landing a shopping cart, and the wide wheelbase is especially tolerant of crosswinds. Flying the float Caravan provides a workout for the pilot's left arm and right leg. That elevator sure gets heavy at slow speeds, and the powerful engine requires lots of right rudder on takeoff, but it sure is a good kind of tired. Dave Hirschman, AOPA pilot.
Hi, Dave. Well, that looks like a real workout flying the Caravan on floats.
It is a workout, but it's thoroughly enjoyable, and it's something I never expected to get to do. But I guess Brian was having a 2-for-1 special, so Luz and I were able to tag team, and what a great experience.
And so what's your favorite part of flying the Caravan on floats?
You know, it's usually the bigger the airplane gets, the less fun it is. But the Caravan, you know, even though it's a really gigantic signal, it is just loads of fun. And you know, it surprised me how nimble it is. It's and how you know, it really is a sort of the ugly duckling story. When it goes on floats, it just becomes a swan, and it, you know, it handles well. It's quite agile. It's beautifully balanced. It's got a fantastic visibility, and it's just so much fun to fly. It's a real scream.
Oh, cool. Now, what was the most unexpected thing that you discovered when you were flying it on floats?
You know, I kind of expected it to be draggy, and it is very draggy. It's a study in aerodynamic drag, but it's about the same speed. It's only a few knots slower than a Caravan with a cargo pod on the belly. So I was surprised that the speed penalty wasn't as great as I thought it was. It's going straight and level. It's typically in the mid 150 knot range, 154, 155 knots, and so that's actually a lot quicker than I expected it to be on amphibious floats.
Okay. Now, if you lose power, does it sink like a rock, like like a Super Cub on floats, for example?
Oh, it makes a Super Cub look like a glider.
Oh.
I mean, it comes down. A piano has got a better glide range than a float Super Cub, than a float Caravan, in with the flaps out, or and especially the propeller. It's Brian was really making a point that in an engine out situation, you've just got to feather the prop right away. And we did set up a couple of simulated engine outs with the prop in flat pitch, and it just comes down like a helicopter. I mean, it's just straight down. It's amazing the rate of descent that if you want to maintain forward speed, you've got to pitch down to about a 30-degree nose down attitude, which is it just falls out of the sky. Fortunately, the PT6 is a tremendously reliable power plant, so it was good to see that and good to practice it, but it's it's an unlikely situation to encounter in the real world.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing your experience with us.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a real privilege.
Well, if learning to fly seaplanes is on your bucket list, or even learning to fly, well, we can help you with that. The 2023 AOPA Foundation Scholarship Program runs through February 10th, and we have awards ranging from $2,500 to $14,000 for primary training, advanced certificates and ratings, and even for maintenance technicians. Just go to the link in our description below, and you'll find all the information you need and how to apply. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's Fly with AOPA. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our latest videos. This week, we leave you with some footage that should put you in the holiday spirit. Helicopters harvesting Christmas trees. We visited the Noble Mountain Tree Farm in Oregon back in 2016, and we reached out this week and they're in full swing harvesting trees for Christmas. Please be sure to send in your favorite flying videos at the link in the description. You just might see them on an upcoming show. And as always, if you're not already an AOPA pilot, we'd love for you to join us. Click the link at the end of the video to learn more. I'll see you next week.